Welcome to The Explainer. I am incredibly excited to have you here today because we are going to dive into something that can genuinely transform the way you learn, study, and process information. Today we're focusing on Lesson 53, Taking Diagrammatic Notes. We're going to look at how ditching traditional linear note-taking for highly structured visual frameworks can literally revolutionize your study sessions. All right, let's jump right in. Picture this for a second. You're sitting in a massive lecture hall, or, maybe you're rushing through a really intense reading assignment. The information is just coming at you a mile a minute. The lecturer is firing off dates, definitions, concepts, theories, and you are frantically, desperately trying to transcribe every single syllable they say. Your hand is cramping up, your stress levels are through the roof, and the moment they move to the next topic, you're already behind, right? We've all been there. But here's the hard truth. This linear strategy of trying to capture everything word for word, it's just not realistic. And more importantly, it's not useful. It's actually holding you back. So let's take a breath, slow down for a second, and look at exactly what is at stake here. 57%. According to a landmark educational study by Gage and Berliner, students who use conceptual maps before a lecture, the ones who visually structure their learning, well, they can increase their memory recall by a massive 57% compared to those who don't. I mean, just think about that. A 57% boost in your ability to remember complex information simply by changing how you map it out. To help you unlock that advantage, here is our game plan for today. First, the note-taking struggle. Second, the power of diagrammatic notes. Third, mind maps. Fourth, Venn diagrams. And finally, choosing your visual tool. Let's get started.
Okay, Section 1, the note-taking struggle, the cognitive overload.
The fundamental problem we all face in academics is just the sheer volume of data. You're bombarded with this massive influx of information across lectures, seminars, textbooks, you name it. And when you try to process all of that by just writing it down line by line, your brain literally runs out of working memory. That leads to cognitive overload. I absolutely love this quote from the source material because it hits the nail right on the head. It describes, quote, "The harassed first-year nursing student hurrying from lecture to tutorial, backpack full of photocopied journal articles, notes, and guidelines for an essay on the sociology of nursing, a clinical report, a case study, a reflective journal." You can practically feel the weight of that backpack, right? Say goodbye to your posture. But honestly, that physical weight is a perfect metaphor for the cognitive overload happening in your brain when your notes are messy, linear, and completely unorganized. Let's move to Section 2, Power of Diagrammatic Notes, a Scientific Solution. And that brings us to Section 3, Mind Maps, Unpacking Concepts, Scenario A. To avoid that cognitive overload we were just talking about, our brains need to organize knowledge into structured, conceptual models. Psychologists actually call these schemas. So imagine Scenario A. You're sitting in a lecture and the professor introduces a brand new, highly complex academic concept. They're going to spend our next 20 minutes unpacking the definition, the real-world applications, and all the subcategories of this one overarching idea. If you take linear notes, you're going to bury that core concept. You need a tool designed specifically for expansion. This is exactly when you deploy a mind map. A mind map is a visual diagram of information that's super useful for taking notes, planning, definitions, and explanations. It's basically the perfect tool for taking a single central idea and visually tracking exactly how it branches out into related subtopics. It completely mimics the way your brain naturally makes associations. Let's look at an example straight from the source text. Imagine the lecturer writes this word on the board. Biomimetics. That is our core concept. So instead of writing it at the top left of a lined page like you normally would, you place biomimetics right dead in the center of a blank page, and you draw a circle around it. Boom. You've just anchored your schema. Now you listen to how the lecturer breaks it down. First, they give a definition. Biomimetics is the scientific study of design in nature. So you draw a branch out from the center for the definition. Next, they give an explanation. It's the application of those natural designs to man-made objects. You draw another branch. Then they give a real-world example. Engineers designing the Japanese Shinkansen bullet train by mimicking the long, narrow beak of a kingfisher bird to reduce noise. You draw a third branch for the example. Do you see what just happened? Everything is neatly organized, categorized, and visually linked. You just saved an immense amount of time, and more importantly, you can see the relationship between all these ideas at a single glance. Let's shift gears to Section 4, Venn diagrams, comparing ideas, Scenario B. So what happens when the lecturer changes style? Imagine Scenario B. The lecturer shifts away from unpacking a single concept and instead starts comparing two competing ideas, maybe historical periods or rival products. A mind map would get incredibly messy here. The real key to mastering diagrammatic notes is active listening. You have to keep your ears wide open for the specific academic language of contrast. When you hear the lecturer use trigger words like similarities, differences, both of these, equally good, or technically superior, an alarm should go off in your head. This is your cue to drop the mind map and pull out an entirely different visual tool. Let's take a business case study comparing the Apple iPod from 2001 and the Microsoft Zune from 2006. Spoiler alert on who won that battle, right? Now, if you're taking traditional notes, you might end up building a raw data table that tracks sales, design, technical specs, media, and features. But think about how clunky that is. To figure out what these two devices actually have in common, your eyes have to dart back and forth across all those rows. It takes serious mental effort just to extract the core insights. It's just a really inefficient way to study for an exam. But if you draw two overlapping circles, suddenly the data reorganizes itself. The unique, differing features of the iPod, like its better sales and more attractive design, are perfectly isolated on one side. The unique features of the Zune, like being technically superior with a larger screen, are isolated on the other. And the absolute magic? That's in the middle, the overlap. They both play music and video, they both have a download store and navigation features. You capture the similarities and the differences instantly with zero cognitive friction. It is a beautifully elegant way to structure competitive data. Which brings us to our final section. Section 5. Choosing your visual tool, a strategic heuristic. We want to synthesize all these lessons into a concrete strategic heuristic for your next study session. The big final takeaway is this. Effective note-taking isn't about frantically writing every single thing down. It's about actively choosing the right visual framework for the information being presented. If you're unpacking a single central concept and exploring its definitions and examples, you draw a mind map. But if you are comparing two or more items to find their similarities and differences, you draw a Venn diagram. It's literally that simple, and it's that powerful. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. Your brain is a powerful engine for making active connections. It is not a passive storage drive for endless linear text. So the next time you open a textbook or walk into a lecture hall, are you just going to read the words on the page, or are you going to take control and draw the connections? Apply these diagrammatic notes, use mind maps and Venn diagrams strategically, and go claim that 57% boost in your recall. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy learning.